Now, I've been getting this conversation roll up many times when I'm talking to people online. And I think the main thing that people want to know is, can we trust Muslims across the board? Can we just flat out trust them? Here's the thing, I'm just going to get my personal experience out of the way before people think my whole answer is based on personal experience. My personal experience, I would say that the religious ones, yeah, they backstab you, they insult you. If you don't take their political views, they will backstab you. They insult you. They get angry, very, very angry. So I would say, from a non-Muslim perspective, if you don't, side with them and everything like that, if you don't accept their political views, if you don't, if you're not accepting of Islam and everything like that, I would say that watch them erupt, watch them get angry. You'll see the hypocrisy in which, at first they're like, "Oh, we're all peaceful," but then, all of a sudden they just flip the switch. And I just think, people of all religions, of course, do this, right? But when it comes to Islam, it's a little bit more particular because with Islam it includes politics. So they're interested in political matters. So if you're not taking their side in political matters, that's included in their deception. And a lot of them, their deception. I'm not talking about the Muslims that identify themselves as Muslim just by identity. They grew up in America or a free country, and they're just Muslim by name, and they just want to have fun and hang out with you and stuff like that. And there's a lot of Muslims that are not religious. I mean, you know, I would treat them as any other person, you know? But if a person is to be pushing towards his views on you, like, oh, Muhammad was peaceful for sure. This is the thing. With Islam, they're trying to justify a bloodthirsty psychopath like Muhammad, in which Muhammad did some good things during his time. He was nice sometimes, but he was just mentally unstable at sometimes. And I'm not going to sugarcoat that. He just wasn't mentally stable at times. So they're trying to take this person who it was mentally unstable, and they're trying to make him out to be a Buddha. They're trying to make him out to be like a Jesus and everything like that. And it doesn't work. You'll see case by case all the time. Now, many of you have also asked me, like, why do Muslims kill other Muslims? And it's for sectarian purposes. Maybe that's a Shia, maybe it's someone from their different sect, and they have within their own ideology a concept of, if you trust the non-Muslims, if you ally with them, if you take them as friends, then you're not a real Muslim. And then they kill them. So people wonder all the time, why do ISIS kill other Muslims? Well, it's because ISIS truly believes they're not real Muslims. They're not real practicing, and they gave up their faith by allying with non-Muslims. ISIS is the worst example of this because they think any Muslim that has any sympathy towards America or likes any Western allies in the least bit, they're kafir. They're non-Muslim. Now, Muslims apply this ideology in different levels. So, yeah, I mean, I would say, as far as trusting Muslims, I don't blame you. I don't blame you if you see a Muslim and you're a little bit, wary, and you're a little bit scared. I really don't, because it's not fair. I see a lot of progressive Muslims do this. It's not fair for them to want the non-Muslims to just trust Muslims across the board. It's not fair. And they're pushing for this narrative. That Mogahead girl, I don't know her first name, Dahlia Mogahead. She's like trying to give a TED talk and trying to say, "Oh, we should trust all Muslims." That's incorrect. That's not being fair to non-Muslims. You're not telling the complete truth. I don't believe in giving a complete trust to all Muslims across the board, because there are some, and there are many, that actually believe in ruling by a political state, and they sympathize with those who want to rule with a political state when it comes to Islam. So there are, as I mentioned in one of my tweets recently, there are Muslims, progressive Muslims nowadays, the progressive Muslim imams nowadays, which I see as a good thing. they're trying to incorporate more discussions with atheists and gays and stuff like that. And I see some of them say, "I pledge allegiance to the flag," which is, I didn't see that like 10 years ago. Now I see Muslims that actually like putting their hand on their heart and say, "I pledge allegiance to America." Whether they're telling the truth or not, I'm not sure. Okay, but I can only judge by what I see. Um, so I would say there are, leaders that are trying to be more progressive because they notice so many people leaving Islam. They're noticing that the new generations, they want nothing to do with Islam because the new generation, they're not dumb. They have the internet, they could see what Islam is, and they're just thinking to themselves, I don't want anything to do with that. I just don't. And that's a good thing. So I do believe in having optimism that more Muslim families are going to embrace atheism, and they're just going to embrace that, this God isn't real. This God of the Quran is just not real because it's too rigid. Like, and Muslims will are the best. They're the best. You have to keep in mind they're the best at playing the victim card. Oh, there's nothing wrong with us. I don't know why. People think there's something wrong with us. You can talk the talk all you want. But when it comes to the content of your religion, that's where you're going to see everything for what it is. If you look at the Quran and you look at the fucking text, the hadith, you're going to see what kind of man Muhammad was. I mean, you just have to research it and you're just going to see it for what it is. So Muslims will put up a good game. I mean, for those people that, say everything that I'm saying is wrong, right? There are people out there that'll say, no, 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 you're being a bigot. All religions are the same and everything like that. All I encourage you to do is look at the content of the religion, and you'll see it's a little bit different because Muhammad had an ideology behind it. There was more political factors involved. It's not as simple as just a religion. It's an ideology, and we have to be honest with that. So yeah, I don't blame, honestly, but the one thing I will warn against is I don't think we should violently attack Muslims randomly on the street. Um, like there are cases where Sikhs get attacked because they're mistaken for Muslims. And even if these are Muslims, I don't believe that non-Muslims should get angry and attack them. That's all I'm saying. But the trust factor, I I see where you're coming from. I see where you're coming from. You do have a trust factor because you don't know what you're getting with Muslims unless they can empirically prove that we can trust them 100%. And the Muslims wonder all the time, how do we prove it? How do we prove it? Well, it starts with abandoning some of these texts. It starts with, I'm sick and tired of them trying to justify some of these violent texts. You're just gonna have to let some of them go. You just simply are. Yeah, I don't care if you have to lie and say, oh, these are fabricated hadiths. These are hadiths we don't take. Do that. But until then, if you keep justifying the text, then sorry, you're gonna have to show us that we can trust you empirically. Other than that, it's okay to have a little bit of wariness when it comes to a Muslim, especially if they're talking about political stuff, especially if they're talking about Sharia law, especially if they're talking about all sorts of nonsense. So that's my 2 cents on that. Thank you.